Welcome to Flip Your Script, the vodcast from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine that's all about clinicians redefining care through innovation, leadership, and lifestyle medicine. My name is Dr. Padmaja Patel, and I'm the current president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and serve as Chief Medical Officer of Nudge Health. Each episode delivers 5 key takeaways from leading experts and practitioners on how lifestyle medicine is reshaping the future of healthcare. Through practical strategies and real-world success stories, we empower you to make a lasting impact in your practice and beyond. In this episode, we are honored to be joined by leaders of ACLM's Physical Therapy and Occupational Therapy Member Interest Group. Dr. Wendy Price is founder and CEO of HealthCore, a hybrid health platform delivering personalized, evidence-based care from prevention through long-term well-being. A doctor of physical therapy and board-certified women's health clinical specialist, she is the first DPT to be named as a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. A national leader in health coaching, she serves with the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching and founded the PTOT Member Interest Group within ACLM. An author and educator, her work advances lifestyle medicine and behavior change to support sustainable, women-centered care. Dr. Garner is the founder and CEO of Living Well Education, a pioneer in integrative and lifestyle medicine training since 2000, and Garner Pelvic Health in Greensboro, North Carolina, where she specializes in trauma-informed care for complex pelvic pain, including hypermobility, endometriosis, and hip dysplasia. Her clinic regularly welcomes patients from across the world, where she provides comprehensive, integrative, and lifestyle medicine-centered care. A speaker and textbook author, she teaches at universities worldwide, Pelvic Global and Herman and Wallace Pelvic Rehabilitation Institute, and has authored multiple textbooks and book chapters. A longtime advocate, she serves as legislative chair for APTA North Carolina, is active in policy creation at both at the state and federal level, and hosts the Vocal Pelvic Floor podcast on Advocacy. Dr. Nola Peacock is an outpatient physical therapist and lifestyle medicine clinical coordinator at St. John's Health in Jackson, Wyoming. Nola is a board-certified clinical specialist in geriatric physical therapy, is a national board-certified health and wellness coach, and is a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. She serves on the steering committee of the American Physical Therapy Association's Council on Health, Promotion, and Wellness. In her clinical practice, Dr. Peacock specializes in the treatment and prevention of chronic lifestyle-related conditions with physical therapy intervention and health coaching. Welcome, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, my pleasure. So let me get started by asking each of you, tell a story about how you first got interested in lifestyle medicine and what drew you to this field.
Well, I'll go first. I have the privilege and pleasure every day to work in a very active community. And my focus for the last couple of decades has been on the aging adult. And I love to come to work every day to hear about the great stories and about the goals and the aspirations that the aging adults that I work with have. And over the decades, I would treat patients for chronic health-related conditions. And they would get better and they would, go on their way, but then they would circle back to me, coming back maybe with the same problem or an additional problem that we just seemed like we kept kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. They would finish up with me, go on their way, and then come back. And it finally occurred to me that we weren't quite getting to the real root cause of what was going on. And that's where lifestyle medicine entered my practice a long, long time ago, in that it enabled me to use the different pillars of lifestyle medicine to do a deep dive to treat the root causes where these things were coming from so that we just didn't fix the problem in a rehabilitation setting and circle back again in a few months or a few years' time to do the same thing. So a great story that I have is a wonderful patient that I've had off and on probably for 20 plus years. When I first met him, he was in his mid 60s. He was still skiing, alpine skiing, 100 days in a winter. I live in a resort town and people ski like crazy here. And now he's in his mid 80s and he is still skiing. He goes out 100 days a year, not as hard as he used to, but he attributes it to focus not only on the musculoskeletal system that he and I initially started working on for some low back pain, but I have seen him through management or assisting with the management of some elevated blood sugar issues, some elevated lipids. And so he's on track and doing really well. And it's a delight to work in this space using these tools of physical therapy and
Mhm.
lifestyle medicine combined.
Oh, I love that story. Thank you. Wendy, what would you say?
I became interested in lifestyle medicine over 15 years ago. I opened my practice then to provide care for patients with cancer. And at the time, there was no local cancer hospitals. And it was through my patients that I learned. So I had a dietitian, we did stress reduction, physical therapy, we did movement, we also had exercise. And it was really lifestyle medicine without calling it back then.
Hmm.
And one of my mentors was Dr. Julie Silver at Harvard Medical School. And I was talking with her and she goes, that's, essentially lifestyle medicine. And Harvard has a lifestyle medicine program. So that's when I took their course and learned about ACLM and then became board certified. So I just saw the benefits that my patients were having with
Mm.
integrating lifestyle medicine way back then, and then became more interested in it. And that's when Nola, and I founded the MIG group at ACLM.
Well, first off, I am always eternally inspired by my colleagues and what they're doing. And I've heard Wendy's story and I've heard Nola's story, but I love to hear more of those cases, more of those stories. And I never get tired of hearing it because it's why we're all in this, doing it in all different parts of the country. And the way that I entered into it was, again, much like Wendy said before, there was a label of lifestyle medicine. My entry point was really through yoga, which is
Mm.
a very, indigenous life, kind of indigenous lifestyle medicine of its own. So we were talking about all of those things with my patients, which the reason I ended up using yoga so much was because I was dealing with chronic pain patients,
Mm.
that chronic pain population. And I had no idea 1998 was when I first started to do this. I landed in a county that would come to be number 3 in the nation for the opioid epidemic.
Oh, wow.
And so all my patients were coming in on opioids.
Wow.
It was a really hard hit county, obviously. It was in an underserved area. There was not a lot of resources. And so it was really a life and death for these patients that they get the information that they needed. And lifestyle medicine, as we know, enjoys such a sound, solid evidence base that it was life changing for these people to get off of those opioids, manage their pain, and then get back to the quality of life they deserved. So that was really my entry point. And then later on, I learned about ACLM and then, went through the board certification process. But that was my entry point.
Yeah, and I can relate to that story, with all of you, that I was also, I mean, obviously, I learned about lifestyle medicine at a webinar that I attended, but what really drew me into practicing more is exactly my patients. When they came back after, you give them the prescription and then you are surprised at the outcome. So I think there is that inspiration that we get from our own patients and their journey. Always, it's so powerful. So, Wendy, let me ask you, how has your background in physical therapy and women's health shape the way you deliver lifestyle medicine to support sustainable behavior change and long-term well-being of these patients?
I think it's my background has really helped how I integrate lifestyle medicine because I already spend quality time with my patients. We see them one-on-one. We see them for multiple visits. So we really build a trusting, long relationship. And it's just a natural extension of what we already do
Okay.
to incorporate lifestyle medicine. So it's fairly easy and it's beneficial not only for our patients, but also for ourselves as practitioners because we talk about burnout. And when I see my patients thrive, that's the real reason why I went into healthcare. I love seeing the outcomes of my clients and patients.
Mm-hmm. You talked about burnout, and if I can ask you just additional question, before you integrated lifestyle medicine into your practice versus after, can you just elaborate how you personally saw the difference?
So back, over 15 years ago, I think Ginger will agree with this. We opened our practices to provide this new way of care. We saw that it wasn't working. I called it patient purgatory or revolving door care, where you would
Mm,
see a patient, they would come back, and you really weren't getting to the root of the problem. So that's when I took a leap of faith and opened my own practice and to provide essentially, lifestyle medicine and saw the results. So I was very unhappy, and that's why I left. And I was either going to leave the profession, but then I
oh
decided
no.
to open my practice and just do it in a different way. And it was very rewarding.
Yes, powerful. So, Ginger, I learned that you have been active in policy and advocacy work. So, let me ask you, how have your efforts in PTOT and ACLM policy helped turn lifestyle medicine from an idea into more of a daily practice?
It is, something Wendy said really resonates with me because, and I think it does with all of us probably, is that notion of burnout. And I was in the same position of considering leaving the practice just altogether. And it doesn't take long, I think, to get that way in a system where
Mhm.
it does not seem that our values are aligned
Yes.
with the way that we need to practice. And so I thought about leaving too. And ultimately, I didn't fully dive into advocacy for another 10 years after that. But my heart was just pulled in that direction. I just didn't know what it was yet. And I heard a story. I think it's Archbishop Desmond Tutu said this. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure, but he said at some point you have to stop pulling bodies out of the river and go upstream and see who's throwing them in.
Mm,
And so to do that, I realized that I started my own practice like Wendy did. I went out on my own. I recovered from burnout. And then I got pulled into, well, what is the real reason and the root cause? And while lifestyle medicine, it was absolutely, working, integrative medicine via yoga, mindfulness, meditation, all of those beautiful things were working with my patients, but I knew that I could do more. And so that was a calling that I couldn't ignore. And ultimately, I ended up running for state office.
oh,
I ended
wow.
up running for Senate, but for healthcare advocacy. But along the way, I got more involved with ACLM and APTA. And in 2017, I brought a proposal for a position statement update
Mhm.
because APTA, and this is just an example of, policy first as an anchor for us, because I think lifestyle medicine doesn't scale on evidence alone. It scales through policy. And so the position statement that they were considering getting rid of, and which I thought was a shock to me, was about this type of practice. And so I basically advocated with our North Carolina delegation, which then went to our House of Delegates for American PT Association. And the final statement that was adopted, so it was successful, was that APTA supports the continued use of complementary and integrative medicine in practice. And the biggest word there that was a sticking point was the continued use, because it established precedent that lifestyle medicine is indeed a part of a practice. And the reason that's important is because clinicians don't hesitate because there's not evidence. There's plenty of evidence to support lifestyle medicine. They hesitate because they lack permission. And policy provides that permission for us. And so that's gone on to, birth many things. I know Wendy and I have co-authored a chapter together. Nola and Wendy contributed to the textbook that Joe Tata and I co-edited and contributed to, integrative and lifestyle medicine in physical therapy, which very much applies to occupational therapy too. Just small things like that to pay it forward, because ultimately policy gives us that permission to practice, and then education builds competence. And then you get down to the weeds and you've got clinical teams creating, the powerful impact that lifestyle medicine has.
Yes, very well said. And thank you for that advocacy work, because obviously, where we are with all this initial work that all of you have led into in your leadership roles. But clearly now we're in a very great, now we're really in an amazing position as a field, more so because we see that the federal payers and other payers are really lining up behind lifestyle medicine and more as a prevention of chronic conditions and treatment. So it's really a very exciting time to be part of this community, but also to practice lifestyle medicine. So Nola, I want to ask you, I know physical therapy has a unique role in implementing lifestyle medicine. How do you integrate health coaching, physical activity, and other pillars of lifestyle medicine to improve patient health span and long-term adherence?
I love this approach that has been laid before us. And this actually circles back a little bit to our conversation about burnout that both Wendy and Ginger touched on. I think about lifestyle medicine, one of the tenets, aside from the pillars, is this idea of really person-centered care. And when we combine that with a coach approach, I think that's where we really elevate the person, the patient, to the one who is in charge of the care, of the rehabilitation, of the prevention, of the management of the chronic disease. I think part of the burnout comes from perhaps the structures within which we practice. But I also think there's some burnout that comes from the provider believing that they are the one that gives the service, that gives the treatment, that provides the intervention, that makes the person better. Well, in reality, it's the person that's in the driver's seat that is improving their health and prevention and, taking the lead on this. So when we combine a health coach approach with physical therapy or occupational therapy, it pulls us away from the ownership of the outcome. We partner with the person, the patient, for them to own the outcomes. And for me, that's an amazing realization. It respects the person that we're working with. It respects our position that we're not in charge of this. We're a partner in this. And to me, that decreases, I think, that sense of burnout. Well, the patient didn't get better. I did something wrong. No. Let's take a step back and see what is we as a partnership. What do we need to change? What do we need to work on differently? So for me, that is just absolutely revolutionary. And I think it changes the way we practice. And I really believe it changes the way the people, the clients, the patients that we work with improve, get better, and take charge of their health and their outcomes. And so physical therapy is not an occupational therapy. They're not just rehabilitation disciplines. They are. But with the health coach approach, the person-centered care, it changes into a quality of life connection and issue.
I love that. Patient activation.
Can I expand on that too?
Yes,
I always
please.
say that once your patient leaves the clinic, that's where health coaching comes in. And I always say that's where health happens. We only see them for, an hour at the most. And what happens when they leave? So we set them up to succeed once they leave your clinic, that they continue doing the plan that you collaborated with together to reach their goals. So that's where I think that health coach approach comes in so, importantly.
Yeah, I was just saying patient empowerment, right? When they're
Mm-hmm.
making shared
Absolutely.
decision making, like you are really involving them, not just passive recipient of, whatever prescription or whatever you were trying to do. So yeah, that's such a sort of a critical aspect of our approach to care. And this is why obviously patients love it, and clinicians also enjoy delivering care. So before we conclude, I want to ask each one of you, what advice would you give to clinicians or students who want to bring lifestyle medicine into their practice effectively?
I can start. I would say, when you're working with a client, look at the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
Look at, their sleep, their diet, because you can't just treat like a body part, like for us in PT, like a back or a knee. We really need to look at the whole person and their whole lifestyle. And in order to get the best outcome and quality of life, we have to look at the root cause and look at their lifestyle.
All right, I like it.
And I'll add to that. Very well said, Wendy. What I would also add is that I think that we need to embrace lifestyle medicine inwardly. I've reached out and done a lot of community and professional education talking about lifestyle medicine. It's good for your patients and it's good for you.
Yeah.
And so I think when we walk that talk, we live that lifestyle, no one's perfect. We're all learning, and there's something that we all struggle with. And I believe there's a potential for us to build empathy for the things that I struggle with, maybe different than what my patients and clients struggle with, but we're all in this together. We're all learning. We're all working towards a better quality of life and health.
That's great. I love, that's such a encouraging message.
Yeah.
Nola, so I really like the way that you put that. And knowing that we are trying our best to take a patient-focused, person-centered approach, a biopsychosocial approach, so that we're asking them about all of the kind of softer things that that weren't forward in our training, in PT and OT school. We're asking them about those things. Do they have access to green space? Do they live in a food desert? Do they feel safe taking a walk on the sidewalk at night? Like what does their community look like? And to speak to the importance, I think, of community building for us, because I don't think that we can implement it if we're not kind of embracing it, embodying it ourselves. But then we also need support. And I just want to send that message of support to people who are practicing, to students who are considering doing this, to people who may not be fully embracing it yet, but they're considering it, that just as maybe a pilot program or example of what we've done here in the Triad in North Carolina, which is Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and the High Point area of North Carolina, which is very near the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. So we're right in the middle of central North Carolina and not far away from Charlotte, so heavily populated area. What we did here was something kind of unique, and maybe this can be used in other areas of the country. We call it plant providers. And we have basically created a roster of everyone in the Triad area who practices lifestyle medicine. So we have a huge list of, endocrinology, cardiology, physical therapy, mental health, nutritionist, everyone that's actually doing that. And we get together on a regular basis and stay in touch with each other, and we can exchange resources and encourage each other. Because although we're trying to embody this on a regular basis and also teach it to our students and our patients, it can be a heavy load. So that's just a way to, create community as well.
Yes. Well, thank you, all of you. That's very encouraging, powerful message and inspiring. So thank you so much for joining us today and generously sharing your insights and deep experience. And thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Flip Your Script. We hope today's conversation has inspired you with practical insights on how lifestyle medicine is shaping the future of patient care. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Stay connected with us for more episodes featuring clinicians who are rewriting the script on health, one patient at a time. Until next time, take action, make an impact, and keep flipping the script on healthcare. Thank you.